"I told you, this is my seat." The voice was calm, steady, yet it cut through the first-class cabin like a knife. For a moment, the air froze. Passengers stopped mid-conversation, eyes darting between the striking black man standing tall in the aisle and the elegant blonde woman reclining in a leather seat she refused to give up. This wasn't just a seating mix-up. It was the beginning of a black story no one on that plane would ever forget. The man was Jordan Carter, a CEO whose sharp jawline and athletic frame made him look more like an NBA star than a tech mogul. He had worked his way up from nothing, from a childhood in Atlanta's toughest neighborhoods to building one of Silicon Valley's most powerful software companies. And tonight, all he wanted was peace on a flight home from San Francisco to Chicago. But fate, as always, had other plans. The woman in his seat wasn't just mistaken. She was deliberate. Her tone was laced with entitlement as she looked him over and smirked. "Maybe you should try coach. This section isn't for people like you." That was it. The line that turned whispers into gasps, that transformed an ordinary red-eye flight into a viral storm waiting to erupt. Phones started recording. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. And Jordan, instead of walking away, decided to stand his ground, not just for himself, but for every time he'd been told he didn't belong. What happened next didn't just delay the flight. It shook the entire airline industry. Within minutes, executives were scrambling, stock prices quivered, and millions online would soon be chanting Jordan Carter's name. This isn't just another drama in the sky. It's a lesson about dignity, power, and the moment one man chose to stop being silent. So lean in, because this black story is more than entertainment, it's a mirror. A reflection of what happens when prejudice collides with power. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, don't just watch. Stay with us, hit that like button, and let's walk together through every twist, every confrontation, every shocking revelation. Because trust me, this is just the beginning. Jordan Carter wasn't just another passenger trying to claim his seat. He was a man who had spent his entire life fighting for the right to sit at tables people said he didn't belong at. From the outside, he looked effortlessly confident. 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, the kind of presence that filled a room even when he wasn't speaking. But his calm exterior was built on years of learning how to hold his ground without letting anger take the wheel. Born on the south side of Atlanta, Jordan grew up in a neighborhood where ambition was often crushed before it had a chance to bloom. His mother worked double shifts as a nurse, and his father, a mechanic, drilled into him one lesson: never let anyone else define your worth. That mantra carried Jordan through late nights in public libraries, through a scholarship at Georgia Tech, and finally into the heart of Silicon Valley. By 35, Jordan had built Carter Dynamics, a tech empire specializing in artificial intelligence systems that powered airports, hospitals, and global logistics. He wasn't just successful, he was influential. Forbes called him the quiet architect of modern infrastructure. But the title he valued most was son. He still called his mother every Sunday night, no matter where he was in the world. And tonight, he wasn't flying just for comfort. He was heading to Chicago for a critical board meeting with the Federal Aviation Administration and 3 major airline executives. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. sharp. If he missed it, he risked losing a billion-dollar contract that could expand his company into every major American airport. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man being told to move out of his assigned first-class seat was the same man whose software kept Liberty West Airlines running on time. Every gate change, every boarding pass, every flight manifest, it all ran through Carter Dynamics. Yet here he was, once again, being reduced to how he looked, not who he was. For Jordan, this wasn't just about a chair by the window. It was about dignity. It was about principle. It was about refusing to step aside when he had earned his place. The stakes weren't only financial or professional. They were personal. He had promised himself long ago that the next time someone tried to push him out of a seat he had earned, he wouldn't quietly move. He would stand. And this flight, Flight 3021, was about to test that promise in front of the entire world. The flight attendants tried to keep their smiles fixed, but the tension in first class was sharp enough to slice through the cabin air. Brooke Whitmore leaned back against the headrest of seat 1A, as though she were the rightful queen of the aisle. Her manicured fingers drummed lazily on the armrest, her voice carrying just loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Sir, I think there's been some kind of mistake," she said, eyes flicking to Jordan's hoodie and casual sneakers. "First class has certain expectations. You understand, right?" It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Every syllable coated in the sugary sweetness of someone who wanted to sound polite but meant the opposite. The coded message was clear. "You don't look like you belong here." Jordan inhaled slowly, the way he always did when provocation threatened to pull him out of character. He kept his voice even. "The only expectation that matters is what's printed on my boarding pass. And that says 1A. Brooke gave a short laugh, the kind that wasn't amused but dismissive. "You're being awfully rigid about this. In first class, flexibility goes a long way. People who travel often know how to handle these situations without drama." Drama. The word hung in the air. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to listen but clearly tuned in. Jordan had been in enough boardrooms to know what she meant. Drama was a word often used to frame black men as loud, unreasonable, or aggressive. From the galley, the lead attendant Janelle approached, her polite tone betraying a hint of hesitation. "Mr. Carter, Mrs. Whitmore is a titanium member. She specifically requested this seat. If you wouldn't mind, we can offer you an aisle seat with extra legroom and complimentary service for the inconvenience." Jordan's jaw tightened. He recognized the pattern. He had seen it 100 times. When conflict arose, it was always him who was asked to bend. Him who was asked to be reasonable. "I appreciate the offer," Jordan replied calmly, "but I'm already in the seat I paid for. Asking me to move doesn't solve the mistake. It rewards it." That line rippled through the cabin. A few passengers raised their eyebrows. Others lowered their gaze, unwilling to pick a side. Brooke leaned forward now, her voice sharper. "Look, this is first class. There's a certain standard. Maybe next time, dress the part. It makes everyone more comfortable." There it was. Another phrase. Dress the part. Another coded jab, one Jordan had felt countless times, an insinuation that his presence was only legitimate if he looked like someone else's definition of success. Jordan locked eyes with her, refusing to flinch. "Comfort doesn't come at the cost of my dignity." Phones were out now. A young woman 2 rows back held hers at chest level, recording discreetly. The escalation had gone from a private insult to a public confrontation. The coded language Brooke thought she could slip beneath the radar was now being captured, word for word, and Jordan Carter had no intention of backing down. The cabin had gone quiet when a new figure appeared from behind the curtain. Captain Daniel Mercer, tall and weathered from decades in the sky, stepped into the aisle. His presence carried authority, and passengers seemed relieved, as if a parent had entered the room to settle squabbling children. "What seems to be the issue here?" the captain asked, his voice calm but firm. Before Jordan could speak, Brooke jumped in, her tone shifting instantly from condescending to innocent. "Captain, thank you for coming. I've been seated here for years. I'm a titanium member. But this gentleman insists this seat is his. I just don't want to delay the flight." The framing was deliberate. She painted herself as the cooperative one, the loyal customer just trying to help. Jordan watched carefully, recognizing the performance. The captain turned to Jordan. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" Jordan handed it over without a word. Mercer glanced at it, then at the seat. His brow furrowed, but instead of resolving the matter outright, he slipped into the same careful language Jordan had heard too many times before. "Yes, I see this does say 1A, the captain said slowly. "But Mrs. Whitmore has been a frequent flyer with us for over a decade. She's already settled, and these situations can sometimes be flexible. There are other seats available in first class. We'd be happy to accommodate you in 2C. Extra legroom, priority service." There it was again. Flexibility. Accommodation. Words that seemed fair on the surface but carried the weight of expectation. Expectation that the black passenger would be the one to bend, the one to make peace. Jordan kept his voice level. Captain, with respect, flexibility doesn't mean taking what belongs to someone else. I'm not asking for an upgrade or a favor. I'm asking to sit in the seat I paid for. Some passengers nodded slightly, their eyes flicking between the two men. Others avoided looking at all, uncomfortable with what was unfolding in front of them. The captain shifted uncomfortably. Sir, I'm just trying to find a solution that works for everyone. Jordan let the words hang in the air before answering. A solution that works for everyone starts with respecting the boarding pass system. If that doesn't matter, then what are we even doing here? For the first time, the balance of the cabin seemed to tilt. The authority of the captain had been questioned, and not with anger, but with undeniable logic. Passengers whispered. Phones tilted higher. A quiet storm was building. The silence in the cabin didn't last long. From row 3, a young woman with a press badge clipped to her blazer raised her phone discreetly. She had been quiet until now, but her eyes had followed every word. Her name was Elena Morales, a journalist for the Chicago Tribune. She didn't plan to cover news mid-flight, but she knew a story when she saw one. Just behind her, in row 4, a college student named Zoe Kim was already live-streaming. She angled her phone carefully, her followers multiplying by the second. Y'all are not gonna believe this, she whispered to her audience. A black CEO just got told to move out of his first-class seat because someone with status wants it. Watch this. Notifications began pinging on her screen. 100 viewers became 1,000. Then 2. Comments poured in. Stay strong. Document everything. Don't let them bury this. Jordan noticed the glow of the phones but didn't flinch. If anything, he straightened his shoulders. The fight was no longer private. The coded insults, the dismissals, the captain's attempt at compromise, everything was being preserved, streamed, amplified. Brooke, on the other hand, finally realized the shift. She leaned toward the flight attendant, her voice hushed but sharp. They can't film me. I don't consent to this. Elena answered before the attendant could. Her tone was measured, but every passenger could hear it. This is a public space, Mrs. Whitmore. People have every right to record what's happening. The words stung Brooke more than any shout could have. Her cheeks flushed, her hands tightened around the armrest. She turned back to Jordan, her voice dripping with disdain. This is ridiculous. He's clearly trying to make a scene, probably looking for some kind of payout. Phones tilted higher. Gasps spread through the cabin. The accusation had crossed a line. Jordan didn't have to defend himself. The passengers were doing it for him now. The older black couple in row 6 exchanged knowing looks, shaking their heads. A man in business attire muttered just loud enough, "Unbelievable." Zoe's livestream ticked past 5,000 viewers. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Seatgate. Hashtag Black CEO. Hashtag Airline Bias. Screenshots spread across Twitter and TikTok in real time. Jordan's heartbeat slowed, not quickened. For years he had been told to pick his battles carefully, to avoid giving anyone an excuse to label him difficult. But tonight, the world was watching. The narrative was no longer in Brooke's control, or even the captain's. It was in his. The energy in the cabin had shifted. What began as a private argument had become a stage, and Jordan Carter stood at the center of it. Cameras captured his every move. Words like integrity and bias flashed across social media feeds faster than the plane could taxi. Jordan adjusted the sleeve of his hoodie, revealing just a sliver of a watch. Not just any watch, a Patek Philippe, a quiet symbol of wealth that didn't need an introduction. A few sharp-eyed passengers noticed, whispering to each other. It was a small reminder that appearances could deceive, that the man being told he didn't belong carried more power than anyone realized. Brooke didn't notice. She was still pressing her advantage, her voice steady but her eyes betraying the first flicker of doubt. "Captain, with all due respect, this flight needs to move. If this gentleman insists on causing delays, maybe he should be escorted off." The word escorted hit like a warning shot. Phones tilted higher. Passengers exchanged looks. Everyone knew what that implied. Jordan's expression didn't change. Instead, he spoke with the same calm authority he used in boardrooms. "No one here is delaying this flight but the person sitting in the wrong seat. If we want to leave on time, the solution is simple. Respect the boarding pass system." The captain shifted again, clearly uncomfortable. He wanted resolution, but the easy solution, asking Jordan to move, was no longer viable. Too many witnesses. Too many phones. Jordan leaned slightly closer, his voice low but clear enough for nearby passengers to hear. "You might want to think carefully about how you handle this. Some decisions don't just stay in this cabin. They ripple out." It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. A gentle reveal that he wasn't just another passenger. He was someone whose influence extended far beyond the leather seats of first class. Across the aisle, Zoe's live stream comments erupted. "Who is this guy? He sounds powerful. That watch isn't cheap. Bet he's somebody important." And soon, they would all know just how important. The freeze was coming. The hum of the engines filled the silence as the aircraft waited at the gate, but inside the cabin, the air was charged. Everyone was watching Jordan Carter. Phones were raised, eyes fixed, breaths held. Even Brooke's confident smile had begun to slip. She still leaned back in the seat as though it belonged to her, but her grip on the armrest betrayed the truth. She was losing control. The captain cleared his throat, searching for the kind of authority that had always settled disputes. "Mr. Carter, Mrs. Whitmore," he began, "let's not escalate this further. We need to make a decision quickly, or we risk delaying the entire flight." Jordan stood tall in the aisle, his voice calm but sharper than it had been before. "The decision is already made. My boarding pass says seat 1A. I will not move. And the longer we argue, the more this airline shows the world exactly how it treats its passengers." The words carried more weight than anyone expected. A few passengers nodded. Others whispered to each other. Jordan wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was putting the entire airline on trial. Brooke snapped, unable to keep her composure. "This is absurd. Captain, you're really going to let him hold us hostage? He's probably hoping for some kind of payout or special treatment. People like him always do." The phrase landed like a grenade. "People like him." Gasps rippled through the cabin. Elena Morales's pen raced across her notepad. Zoe Kim's live-stream chat exploded with outrage. Thousands of viewers typed in unison, "Did she really just say that? Unbelievable. This is discrimination, plain and simple." Jordan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply looked at the captain and said, "Now would be a good time to call operations." The captain frowned. "Operations? Sir, I'm not sure what you mean." Jordan pulled out his phone, the glow of the screen reflecting in his calm eyes. With a few swipes, he opened an app none of the passengers recognized, its sleek interface stamped with the Liberty West Airlines logo. He held it up, just high enough for the nearest cameras to catch. "This," Jordan said evenly, "is the executive control panel. And this," he tapped a single command, "is what happens when an airline forgets who keeps it in the sky." The screen flashed. CEO override. Flight frozen. Return to gate immediately. At first, no one moved. Then, the captain's radio crackled with urgency. "Flight 3021, this is Tower Control. We've just received a freeze order directly from Liberty West Corporate. Confirming, you are grounded until further notice. Return to gate 12 immediately." The captain's face drained of color. He looked at Jordan, then back at his radio, then at Jordan again. "Corporate? Sue, who exactly are you?" Jordan slid the phone back into his pocket with the same ease as if he'd just checked a text. "Jordan Carter, CEO of Carter Dynamics." the company that owns controlling shares of Liberty West Airlines. In other words, I don't just fly this airline. I run it. The cavern erupted. Passengers gasped. Some clapped. Phones shot higher into the air, capturing every second. Zoe's live-stream viewer count spiked past 50,000. Comments flooded in. He owns the airline. This is insane. Bro just froze his own flight. Brooke's face went pale. Her bravado collapsed into panic. That's impossible. You can't just. But Jordan cut her off, his voice steady and final. Mrs. Whitmore, the irony is that while you were arguing over the seat, the entire airline just stopped because of it. That's the difference between entitlement and authority. You assumed your status made you untouchable. You forgot that real power doesn't need to raise its voice. The aircraft began its slow taxi back to the gate, the engines humming lower as though they, too, understood the gravity of the moment. Passengers exchanged wide-eyed looks, whispering about the sheer audacity of what had just happened. They weren't just on a delayed flight. They were part of history in the making. For Jordan, this wasn't about showing off. It wasn't about humiliating anyone. It was about drawing a line, one he had promised himself he would never let anyone cross again. The airline had frozen. But the conversation it sparked was only beginning. The plane rolled back to Gate 12 with a slow, deliberate hum. From the windows, passengers could already see flashing cameras. Reporters gathered like a wave of anticipation waiting to crash. Security officers flanked the jet bridge, not for an arrest, but to control what was about to turn into a media frenzy. As soon as the seatbelt sign clicked off, every passenger in first class leaned forward, whispering, recording, some still wide-eyed from the shock. Brooke sat frozen, her flawless composure shattered. She was no longer the center of attention. She was the cautionary tale. The door opened. A rush of cool terminal air spilled in, along with the buzz of voices and the glare of lights. Jordan Carter stepped out first, shoulders squared, his calm presence cutting through the chaos. Phones flashed. Microphones extended. Questions collided over each other. Mr. Carter, is it true you grounded your own flight? Are you planning to sue Liberty West Airlines? Was this racial discrimination? Are you making a statement for the industry? Jordan didn't raise his hand or shout. He simply stopped at the gate area, turned toward the growing crowd of reporters, and spoke with the same composed authority he had shown on board. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice carrying over the chatter. What happened today wasn't about one seat. It was about dignity. About whether rules apply equally to everyone, or whether they bend for those who feel entitled to take more than they've earned. The flash of cameras intensified. Behind him, Zoe Kim held up her phone, still streaming to tens of thousands of live viewers. Elena Morales scribbled furiously into her notepad, recording every word. Jordan continued. I didn't ground this flight for myself. I grounded it because sometimes, the only way to get the world to pay attention is to stop it cold. And now the world is paying attention. Reporters shouted more questions, but Jordan stayed on his message. This airline, and every airline, must face the reality that bias and discrimination do not vanish at 30,000 feet. They follow us into every space we occupy. Today, I had the authority to stop it. Tomorrow, we need systems that stop it for everyone. The crowd erupted, applause mixed with questions, phones buzzing with real-time notifications. Jordan Carter hadn't just walked off a plane. He had walked straight into a press conference that was rewriting the rules of accountability. And the storm was only just beginning. Inside Liberty West's headquarters in downtown Chicago, the atmosphere was suffocating. The boardroom lights glared down on a long mahogany table filled with executives, attorneys, and PR strategists. Every phone on the table buzzed non-stop with notifications, each one another reminder that the story had already spun far beyond their control. On the giant screen at the end of the room, Zoe Kim's live stream replayed on loop. Brooke's dismissive remarks. The captain's hesitation. Jordan's calm but devastating reveal. The freeze order. None of it could be denied. The general counsel leaned forward, his voice tight. This is a liability nightmare. If Carter wants to press discrimination charges, we're looking at federal investigations, class action lawsuits, possibly hearings in Congress. The Department of Transportation will be on us within 48 hours. Across the table, the VP of Public Relations rubbed her temples. Forget lawsuits for a second. Look at the headlines. CNN is already calling this the biggest airline scandal of the decade. #airline bias is trending globally. We're losing control of the narrative. The CFO scrolled through his phone, his face pale. Our stock dropped 12% in after-hours trading. Investors are demanding answers. Some are even threatening to pull capital unless we get Carter back on our side. Finally, the chairman of the board, a gray-haired veteran of corporate politics, spoke. Let's not forget the obvious. Carter isn't just a customer. He's our majority shareholder. Which means right now, we don't have a PR problem. We have an ownership problem. The room fell silent. The truth was brutal. Jordan Carter wasn't just threatening them from the outside, he was inside the walls, with legal authority to reshape the entire airline if he chose. The general counsel broke the silence. So the question is simple. Do we fight him, or do we let him rewrite the rules? The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Politics, reputation, and law had all collided at once. Whatever they decided in that room would determine not only the airline's future, but the future of air travel itself. While the Liberty West boardroom wrestled with damage control, Jordan Carter was already 3 steps ahead. At his downtown Chicago office, Carter Dynamics' data team worked through the night, poring over years of airline records. Their mission was simple but groundbreaking: turn isolated complaints into undeniable evidence. On a massive wall of screens, patterns began to emerge. Thousands of passenger complaints flagged with words like bias, profiled, harassed, and inappropriate service. Many were buried under resolved status without any real investigation. Others had been dismissed as misunderstandings. Jordan stood at the center of the room, hands in his pockets, watching the numbers climb. 15,000 discrimination-related complaints in the last 12 months across major carriers, his lead analyst reported. Less than 2% led to any policy change or disciplinary action. The rest just disappeared. Jordan nodded. That ends now. We're going to build a system that doesn't let these disappear. Every complaint will be logged, tracked, and escalated automatically until it's resolved. Transparent. Public. Unavoidable. His chief engineer added, we can integrate directly into existing reservation software. If a passenger files a discrimination claim, it goes to the top of the system. Airlines won't be able to bury it. Regulators, the press, even passengers themselves will see the data in real time. Jordan turned back to the screens, his jaw set. This isn't just about one flight. It's about accountability. If they can't change their culture, then we'll change their systems. Technology is the one thing they can't ignore. For Carter Dynamics, the path forward was clear. Use data as leverage, force airlines to confront what they try to hide, and make it impossible for discrimination to slip through the cracks again. The freeze on Flight 3021 had stopped one plane. This system had the potential to stop an entire industry in its tracks, and rebuild it from the ground up. Days after the incident, the storm began to settle, but its impact lingered in every corner of the industry. At Liberty West's headquarters, Jordan Carter met privately with Captain Mercer and flight attendant Janelle. Both looked uneasy, carrying the weight of their choices that day. Jordan didn't raise his voice. This was never about ruining careers, he said. It was about exposing patterns. Patterns that too often go unchecked. The question is whether we learn from them. Captain Mercer exhaled heavily. I was wrong. I thought keeping peace meant asking you to compromise. I see now that peace built on injustice isn't peace at all. Janelle nodded, her voice quiet. I should have backed the boarding pass, not the status. I'll do better. Jordan studied them for a moment before replying. Accountability doesn't end careers. Denial does. What matters is whether you carry this lesson forward. The thaw had begun. The confrontation that froze an airline was giving way to something deeper: recognition, responsibility, and the possibility of change. For Jordan, this was never just about power. It was about people. And people, unlike systems, could still choose to do better. What happened on Flight 3021 wasn't only a corporate scandal or a viral headline. It was a mirror, showing how quickly bias can surface and how silence can let it grow. But it also showed something more important: that one person's refusal to back down can spark change bigger than themselves. Jordan Carter didn't freeze an airline just to prove a point. He froze it to remind the world that dignity is non-negotiable. That rules must apply equally, whether you're a platinum member or a first-time flyer. And that real power is not in titles or seats, but in choosing to act when others expect you to stay quiet. That lesson isn't just for airlines. It's for every workplace, every school, every boardroom, every home. When you see injustice, you can let it slide, or you can stand up, calmly, firmly, and say, "Not this time." So here's the question for you. Where in your life do you need to stop letting things slide? What seat do you need to claim that is already yours? If this Black story moved you, share it. Subscribe for more. And remember, your voice has more power than you think.